Okay, we're ready to go, I guess. So,
That was smooth.
yeah, seamless. Slid right in there, bam, everything in, ready. Okay, before we start the class, I just want to ask a question. Does my butt big in these? Yeah? Sorry. I actually had somebody ask me that question yesterday, and I was like, that's just incredible. You just asked me that. Okay. I was asked here by Mr. Trapani, or either by Sean, or Tyler, whatever, to come in and talk about social media, put a PowerPoint presentation together. I am not a designer, but I have friends that are designers and business colleagues that are designers, so I'm going to kind of wiggle through this, and hopefully, if you get one thing out of this where you went, that's new, and I learned that, that would be my goal. And that no one falls asleep would be the secondary goal. And it's also wide open. You guys are, I'm sure, used to that. I'm not going to just talk and you guys just listen. If you want to throw something at me or ask a question or do whatever, that's fine. If you want to ask me questions later that's not pertinent to this, like real world questions like, how am I going to make any money, or how do I make money later once I get my degree, or what am I going to do? I'll be glad to answer those things too. Let's go ahead and just jump right into it. I started in the internet in 1997. I was a physical therapist. I left that to join a startup because there was this new thing called the internet and the web that was happening. And I had a real desire to jump into it. I went from San Francisco with a startup. We went public. It was worth like $5 billion or something like that. And then I went to New York, opened that office, then the dot-com crash, and I went to Atlanta, then spent 5 years in Vegas, to LA, which was the worst, by the way. I was getting a chance to move out there. And now I live in Hilton Head. So I have my own consulting practice. I was with Anderson Integrated Marketing, which is a big deal agency on Hilton Head. I left them a few weeks ago. So again, I'm not a designer, but let's talk about some stuff. But before we do that, I wanted to just introduce social media and the changes that have happened over the last year or so, and a true explosion of what's happened with a video. Because I find that usually videos are much better at explaining things than I am. Okay, so as you can see, there's a huge change. And for me to come in and actually lecture you guys and give you guys advice on these things is kind of odd in a sense that you guys have lived this. Okay, I just need an age range here. Who's the youngest here? Who's 18, 19, 20?
Me.
20.
At heart. Sorry.
21, 22. 21's the youngest. Who's the oldest in the class? Besides Sean and I. How old are you? You're 26. 26. Okay. You guys grew up on this stuff. In fact, you didn't even know anything about what it was like before what this is right now. About the fact that we actually used to, if we wanted to plan a trip when Sean and I were younger, if we wanted to plan a trip, we drove down to a place they called a travel agency, and we sat down at a desk with somebody called a travel agent, and we talked about what we wanted to do. We sat down and said, well, we'd really love to go on a flight, and then we want to take these tours, and it took hours, and you had to drive over there. You guys, like everybody else nowadays, you go online, you go to Orbitz, you go to Expedia, you go wherever, and you plan. It's a huge shift that's occurred over our lifetime. In your lifetime, that basically didn't exist. So for me to talk about the change of social media, well, I think even the change of social media has actually happened only over the last 18 to 24 months. It was almost non-existent 2 years ago. So you guys are seeing how fast things move. And you're used to that kind of speed. See, we're not used to that kind of speed. And most people, your parents, and anybody over 35 is not used to that kind of change that quickly, that rapidly, and how fast it's moving forward. So we want to talk about that and just putting it into context. Sometimes it's like your head spins a little bit on the fact that you don't really know where things are going, but again, you guys get to be in a unique position of being the people that create where things go. You know, the best way to guess the future is to create it. So with that being said, we talked about the conversation. Social media is the use of technology combined with social interaction to create or co-create value. It's all Web 2.0, it's all the interaction. Let's see, how does this work? Okay, the history. Okay, raise your hand if you know how the internet was created itself. Does anybody know how the internet was created or why it was created?
Military information infrastructure?
Correct. 57 was first discussed, and they started building that out, and by 1969 they brought it live with ARPANET. What it was, and what it still is a redundancy of communication channels. So in case, say, the East Coast gets bombed and is completely destroyed, the rest of the world, all of our army bases, all of our military bases, all of our military installations would still communicate with the United States. Again, if the United States is completely obliterated, all of the military outposts and all the military bases still have the capability to communicate. Instead of, because if you read one book, read Sun Tzu's Art of War, it's only 2,000 years old, but you read it, there's a lot, 2,000 years old, a lot of common sense. And one of the major things you do in battle is cut off the lines of supply and communication to your enemy. You do that, you win the battle. Hence, this is why when we first started getting these access, the American military's response to what was happening with Russia during the Cold War was the building of this. Now, here's what it is now. Okay, the history of social media itself is, well, first off, the first online bulletin boards show up because the first people that really started using the internet, but it wasn't even called that yet, the web, was geeks to go on postings and to communicate a little bit. And the internet still is basically at its most fundamental level communication, more than anything else. Second, 1990, the first commercial service available on Prodigy and Converser. The really tough thing about this was, and again, you guys are so lucky you haven't suffered through this. When we were online in first time I went online was 1995 on AOL. It took roughly 45 minutes to download what you would consider your profile picture on Facebook. It was that slow. And honestly, basically what I did is I'd open up an email, if there was a picture in it, I'd go fix dinner, take a shower, drink 2 or 3 beers in front of the TV, come back, I'd look at the picture. That's how slow it was. Prodigy was even worse back in 1990. It was $30 an hour to be online, plus the long distance phone charges, which they're all long distance, which probably like $30. It was like $60 an hour to even go online for something completely useless and just bulletin boards. So 97 or 92, so the dawn of the web, the AOL for Windows launches. 1997, Friendster, which was the precursor of MySpace and Facebook. Has anybody even heard of Friendster? Another Stanford's, just another project out of Stanford that was developed. They were the precursor. Then MySpace came out. 2006, social bookmarking sites like Dig, Delicious, Stumble, Gig, Love, Frig, all the other different ones all show up. And some go out of business quicker than they actually can even name their name. And then some started making traction moving forward. 2007, the huge change occurs is that Facebook essentially launches and starts growing. Now, you guys are, I don't know, if you guys remember the first time you heard about Facebook, you were like, wow, that's a stupid thing. At least MySpace kind of was self-explanatory. Facebook, to me, when I first heard it, so I just said, what was that, a book of pictures? It just really didn't say anything. But Facebook, as you guys see, is self-evident. They did a lot of things right in a very short time. And they basically exploded virally. They added over 20 million people in June this year. That's just, and when you saw some of the statistics, it took, to have the household penetration of radio was like, what, 3 years to get to 1 million? You can see how much the changes are there. So, now Twitter is launched, and one of the basic foundations of social media also is that whole interaction, the give and take. Amazon really kind of, and I don't have this other, Amazon kind of started that whole trend with the fact that you could actually make comments on products. And they found out very quickly that the things that were read more than anything else on Amazon were all of the referrals by people saying, I love this product, et cetera, et cetera. And so they really started promoting that. That was a huge paradigm shift for e-commerce.